We often assume that if we just reach a certain tax bracket or secure the right job title, the persistent voice of anxiety will finally go quiet. We imagine that climbing to the top of the staircase automatically cures our insecurities. But attempting to cure internal doubt with a larger bank account is like trying to fix a broken engine by giving the car a new paint job. We spend our lives treating the external symptoms of our insecurity while ignoring the source of the problem. You can upgrade their zip code, their wardrobe, and their social standing, but an elevated external reality cannot repair a damaged state of mind. Centuries ago, deep within a secluded forest, far removed from any human settlement, an ascetic saint lived a life of isolation and quiet contemplation. His solitude was broken one evening when a crow dropped a tiny mouse near his cave. The creature was half dead and entirely consumed by its own fragility in a world full of predators. The saint gently scooped up the injured animal, brought it inside his shelter, and nursed it back to health with handfuls of grain. But the forest is unforgiving. Once recovered, the mouse was immediately stalked by a wild cat. Paralyzed by fear, it scrambled back to the saint, seeking refuge deep inside his robes. Looking at the terrified creature, the saint formed a hypothesis. Fear thrives when we are physically outmatched. He believed that if he gave the mouse physical strength, he could cure its terrified mind. So he transformed the tiny mouse into a formidable cat. The newly minted cat boldly left the safety of the cave, prowling through the underbrush with a sudden, unearned confidence. That confidence lasted exactly until it crossed paths with a wild dog. Instinct took over, and the terrified cat scrambled back to the safety of the saint. The saint escalated his experiment. He upgraded the cat into a dog. But the forest always has a bigger predator. A tiger attacked the dog, and the dog fled in panic. So the saint transformed the dog into a tiger. Now at the top of the food chain, the tiger ruled the forest, until a deafening gunshot cracked through the trees. A hunter had arrived. Despite its massive claws and lethal strength, the animal reverted to its core instinct. It cowered and ran straight back to the cave. Exhausted by the animal kingdom, the saint played his final card. He transformed the cowering beast into a powerful, respected human man. This chart compares the mouse's physical power against his internal state. While the power line shoots sharply upward to apex status, the fear line remains stubbornly pegged at the absolute maximum. The outer shell became invincible, while the inner instinct to hide remained untouched. The man settled into a nearby village. He earned respect from his neighbors and began planning for a peaceful, normal life. But his anxiety hadn't vanished. It had simply mutated. The primitive fear of being physically hunted evolved into a gnawing dread of social exposure. A quiet realization took root. He was revered by everyone in town, but one person still knew the truth. The saint knew he was, in reality, nothing but a frightened mouse. The thought consumed him. He convinced himself that as long as the saint breathed, his reputation was in jeopardy. The only way to protect his status was to eliminate the man who gave it to him. Unchecked ego turns a blessing into a burden. This man became so obsessed with his own secret that he was willing to destroy the very person who had saved him. The man returned to the forest, slipping out of the bright daylight into the cold shadows of the stone cave, gripping a knife. But before he could strike, the saint looked into his attacker's eyes. In an instant, the old man read the dark intent and saw the complete failure of his experiment.
He saw that when the mind turns against itself, even the most profound acts of kindness are instantly forgotten. The saint did not fight back with force. Instead, he calmly chanted a single mantra. In a sudden flash, the human form collapsed, instantly reverting the man back into a tiny, squeaking mouse. Terrified once again, the creature scattered into the forest. The lesson was absolute. Any external power can be taken away when it is built on a foundation of mental weakness. The protagonist of this fable was given everything: strength, respect, and security. Yet a single unmanaged thought ensured he lost it all and returned to the dirt. We operate in an environment flooded with immense pressure, social comparison, and criticism. The predators of the forest have just been replaced by modern expectations and peer judgment. This diagram represents how we often respond. We build rings of defense out of job titles and luxury goods to hide our inner mouse. But when an external crisis pierces those superficial layers, an untrained mind causes the life you've built to fall apart. The only reliable defense is to guard your own thoughts. Regardless of your status, your internal monologue will dictate your destiny. Every rise or fall begins with a single thought. You might be given the power of a king, but if you keep the mind of a mouse, you will eventually lose it all.